Have you ever witnessed someone so blinded by their own petty authority that they deliberately injure a child? That's what happened when Carol, our HOA's Architectural Review Committee chair, decided my nephew's Lego creation was an unapproved structure and slammed a heavy binder down, crushing his hand. She didn't know she was about to experience a very immediate, very personal lesson in proportionate response. The Willow Creek Estates clubhouse buzzed softly with the hum of a lazy Saturday afternoon. A handful of residents mingled near the refreshment table, their voices a low murmur. In the corner, my nephew Leo, 8 years old and bright-eyed, knelt beside a low coffee table, his small hands piecing together an elaborate Lego castle. Towers of red, blue, and yellow bricks spiraled upward, a testament to his boundless imagination. Beside him sat a large plastic bin brimming with Legos, its lid pushed to the side. A plate of half-eaten chocolate chip cookies rested on the table, crumbs scattered like tiny confetti. I sat a few feet away, newspaper in hand, skimming headlines but keeping a watchful eye on Leo. My name's David, mid-50s, a security consultant with a past I keep under wraps, former combat medic, special forces, trained to handle threats most folks can't imagine. These days, I prefer the quiet life, but old habits die hard. I noticed Leo's castle was drawing smiles from a couple of older residents. It wasn't blocking anything, wasn't breaking any rules, just a kid being a kid. The clubhouse door swung open with a bang, and Carol Jenkins stormed in like she owned the place, late 50s with a perm as tight as her grip on power. Carol was the chair of the Architectural Review Committee, a title she wielded like a scepter. Her voice, loud and dripping with condescension, could make paint peel. In one hand, she clutched an oversized 3-ring binder, stuffed to bursting with HOA bylaws and violation notices, heavy enough to double as a dumbbell. In the other, she held a half-eaten scone, crumbs dusting her blouse. Her eyes zeroed in on Leo's castle like a hawk spotting prey. "What is this?" she bellowed, marching straight for him. Leo froze, his small hands hovering over a turret. I lowered my newspaper, muscles tensing. "This is an unapproved structure," Carol declared, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "It violates community aesthetic standards. It needs to be removed immediately." Leo's eyes widened, scared and confused. "I am just playing," he stammered. I was halfway out of my chair, ready to de-escalate, when Carol's face twisted with something uglier than annoyance. Before I could cross the room, she raised that massive binder over her head and slammed it down onto Leo's hand, still resting on his castle. The crack of plastic and the sickening crunch of bone hit me like a gunshot. Leo's scream tore through the clubhouse, high and raw, as he clutched his hand, tears streaming down his face. The room went silent, every resident frozen. Carol stood there, binder still pinning Leo's hand, sneering. "That'll teach you to clutter up common areas." Hearing my nephew scream like that, seeing his small hand trapped under that heavy binder, something snapped. My training took over. What would you have done in that instant? That rage, that immediate need to protect. How do you react when a child is deliberately hurt right in front of you? In a heartbeat, I was on her. Years of training, hand-to-hand combat, threat neutralization kicked in, but I stayed controlled. I grabbed the binder, yanking it off Leo's hand and tossing it aside. It skittered across the floor, pages flapping. Leo sobbed, cradling his swollen, red hand, already bruising. I crouched to check him, my medic instinct scanning. Likely fractures, maybe worse. He needed a hospital fast. Carol hadn't moved, her smirk infuriating, like she thought she'd won. "You can't just..." she started, stepping toward us, her posture aggressive, like she might lash out again. My threat assessment was instant. Unstable, hostile, still a danger to Leo. I couldn't risk her escalating further or blocking our exit. In one fluid motion, I pivoted, planting my foot and delivering a precise, controlled knee strike to her left knee. The pop was audible, and Carol collapsed with a howl, clutching her leg. It wasn't vengeance, it was neutralization, creating space to get Leo to safety. Her scone hit the floor, crumbling. Leo's Legos scattered like shrapnel. the castle in ruins. I scooped Leo up, his cries muffled against my shoulder, and headed for the door. "Call 911. I barked at a stunned resident, who fumbled for her phone. Carol's wails followed us out, but my focus was on Leo. She'd picked the wrong kid, and the wrong uncle. Carol thought her HOA title was a shield. She didn't realize she'd just assaulted a child in front of a man trained to document every detail for the inevitable legal storm. The clubhouse was chaos by the time paramedics and police arrived. Leo, pale and whimpering, was loaded onto a stretcher, his hands swollen and discolored. I stayed calm, giving the officers a clear account. Carol's unprovoked attack, Leo's scream, her heavy binder as a weapon, and my split-second decision to neutralize her as a threat. Several residents, still shaken, backed me up, their voices trembling as they described Carol slamming the binder down. She, meanwhile, sprawled on the floor, clutching her knee and shrieking about being brutally assaulted by me. Police placed evidence markers around the scattered Legos and the binder, its weight noted as they bagged it. The cookie plate sat untouched on the table, a heartbreaking reminder of Leo's interrupted afternoon. I handed over my phone, its recording of Carol's rant and Leo's scream already time-stamped and backed up. The officers nodded, faces grim, as they took Carol's statement between her wails. At the hospital, the news was worse than I'd feared. Leo's X-rays showed multiple fractures, his tiny bones splintered, requiring surgery and pins. I sat in the waiting room, the sterile smell shop, and called a personal injury and criminal defense attorney I'd worked with on past cases. He was already pulling strings to get witness statements. I started documenting. Photos of Leo's bruised hand, medical reports piling up, a timeline of every second in that clubhouse. My security training meant I knew how to build an airtight case. Carol, from her own hospital bed with a shattered patella, wasn't idle. She hired a shark of a lawyer and began spinning a tale of victimhood, claiming I'd attacked her unprovoked over routine HOA enforcement. She even tried dragging the HOA into it, threatening to sue them for failing to ensure her safety. Her smear campaign hit the neighborhood gossip mill, painting me as a violent thug. But she didn't know I was already 3 steps ahead. Using only public records, court filings, old news clips, online reviews, I dug into Carol's past. My laptop screen glowed with a growing dossier, a trail of frivolous lawsuits, complaints from former neighbors about her HOA bullying, even ethics violations from her days as a realtor. One resident had called her a tyrant with a gavel complex in a decade-old forum post. Another documented her finding a family for a mailbox 2 inches too tall. It was a pattern and it was damning. Every piece of dirt I found was another nail in her coffin. Carol thought she could bury me in lies. She didn't realize I'd been trained to dismantle threats far more dangerous than her. Carol thought she could cry victim and bury the truth under a mountain of legal fees. She didn't count on my meticulous evidence, my special forces training in de-escalation and proportionate response, and a jury's ability to spot a malicious liar. The months following the clubhouse incident were a legal chess game, each move calculated to outmaneuver Carol's desperate gambit. Pre-trial discovery was a bloodbath for her. Depositions took place in sterile conference rooms, where Carol's carefully crafted persona unraveled like a cheap sweater. Her lawyer, a slick type with a penchant for loud ties, tried to coach her, but Carol couldn't help herself. Under oath, she rambled, contradicted her own statements, and snapped at my attorney when pressed about why she'd slammed a binder on a child's hand. He was defacing common property, she barked, her face red, as if Leo's Lego castle was a graffiti tag. The court reporter's fingers flew, capturing every damning word. Her temper painted her as entitled, vindictive. Exactly the tyrant my dossier had exposed. My deposition, by contrast, was a masterclass in control. I laid out the facts. Carol's unprovoked assault, Leo's screams, her aggressive posture even after the act, and my trained response to neutralize an ongoing threat. My background as a combat medic and security consultant lent weight to my words. I explained how my knee strike was precise, not vengeful, designed to protect Leo and ensure our escape. Witness statements backed me up, and photos of Leo's colorful, harmless Lego castle. Now evidence tugged at the room's heartstrings. The binder itself, entered as Exhibit A, was weighed on a scale during discovery. Nearly 5 pounds, a weapon in all but name. Deposition transcripts piled high, each page a brick in the wall closing Carol in. The HOA, meanwhile, was imploding. Carol's lawsuit against them, claiming they'd failed to protect her, collided head-on with my own, accusing them of enabling a dangerous individual to wield unchecked power. Their insurance provider, spooked by Carol's history of reckless behavior, much of it now public thanks to my research, threatened to drop coverage. Residents were livid. At a packed HOA meeting, voices overlapped in outrage, demanding the board's resignation. She attacked a kid, one woman shouted, holding up a photo of Leo's cast. Property values dipped as local news ran the story, complete with a grainy clubhouse security clip showing Carol's binder slam. The Architectural Review Committee was disbanded, its name now toxic. The clubhouse felt like a ghost town. The coffee table where Leo had built his castle left bare. My attorney and I kept the pressure on, feeding the district attorney's office a steady stream of evidence. Carol's dossier, public records of her lawsuits, ethics complaints, and HOA bullying, was a prosecutor's dream. Her deposition had been a disaster, her lies exposed under cross-examination. My credentials, from threat assessment training to years of de-escalation experience, framed my actions as textbook self-defense. The DA's office pored over witness statements, the binder's weight, and Leo's medical reports, which detailed 2 surgeries and months of physical therapy. The security footage, though grainy, caught Carol's aggressive lunge and my swift response. The official DA decision landed like a gavel. Felony assault charges against Carol for injuring Leo, and no charges against me, citing clear evidence of defense of a minor and justifiable force. Carol's lawyer tried to spin it, leaking to the press that she was a victim of an overzealous vigilante. But the public wasn't buying it. Social media buzzed with outrage. Posts on X called her HOA Karen, and shared memes of binders labeled "Justice for Leo." My attorney advised me to stay quiet, let the evidence speak. It did. The DA's decision document, crisp and unequivocal, was copied and circulated among residents, who taped it to mailboxes like a victory flag. But I wasn't done. Carol's smear campaign had tried to paint me as a loose cannon, so I leaned harder into my training. I met with my attorney in his cluttered office, surrounded by legal pads and coffee cups, to strategize the civil suit. We had Leo's medical bills, tens of thousands in climbing, plus therapy costs for the nightmares that woke him screaming. Pain and suffering weren't just legal terms. They were Leo's flinch when someone raised their hand too fast. I pulled up my dossier on Carol's laptop, now a digital war room, and added new finds. A 2015 complaint from a neighbor she'd fined for a non-compliant birdhouse, and a real estate board warning for undisclosed property defects. Each piece chipped away at her credibility. The HOA's internal chaos gave us leverage. Their board, scrambling to avoid bankruptcy, quietly settled with me, agreeing to fund a children's play area in the clubhouse and cover part of Leo's medical costs. They couldn't afford to fight both me and Carol, whose lawsuit against them was floundering. Her lawyer's motions to dismiss the criminal charges were shot down, the judge citing overwhelming evidence of intent. Carol's world was shrinking, her allies abandoning ship. The neighborhood WhatsApp group, once her bully pulpit, now shared links to news articles about her upcoming trial. As the criminal case built, I visited Leo in the hospital, where he was relearning to grip a pencil. His cast was covered in doodles from friends, but his eyes were tired. "Will she hurt someone else?" he asked, voice small. I promised she wouldn't, not after we were done. My training had taught me to stay calm under fire, to dismantle threats methodically. Carol was no insurgent, no armed hostile, but her lies were a different kind of weapon. I countered them with precision. Every document, every witness, every public record a bullet in the chamber. The courtroom loomed and I was ready. Carol had underestimated me, thinking her HOA clout and crocodile tears would save her. She didn't know I'd been trained to win wars one detail at a time. Carol Jenkins marched into that courtroom expecting to be vindicated. She hobbled out a convicted felon, her reputation in tatters, thanks to a pile of Legos and one very angry uncle. The county courthouse was a gray monolith, its wood-paneled courtroom packed with spectators, residents, reporters, even a few HOA board members squirming in their seats. Carol's trial for felony assault on Leo began with a hush, the air thick with anticipation. She sat at the defense table, her leg in a brace, her face a mask of practiced frailty. Her lawyer, still sporting garish ties, leaned in, whispering strategy. But Carol's eyes darted nervously. She'd built her life on bullying others into submission. Now she faced a jury. The prosecution was relentless. They opened with Leo's x-rays, projected large. Tiny bones fractured, pins glinting like stark reminders of Carol's rage. A pediatric surgeon testified about the surgeries, the months of therapy ahead, the potential for lasting stiffness. Photos of Leo's Lego castle, bright, whimsical, harmless. Drew murmurs from the jury. Then came the binder, Exhibit A, hefted by a bailiff to demonstrate its weight. 5 pounds, the prosecutor noted. Slammed with force on an 8-year-old's hand. Witnesses took the stand. The grandmother who'd gasped as Carol stormed in, the teenager who'd filmed part of the incident on his phone. His shaky footage played for the court. My testimony was the linchpin. I recounted the event with precision. Carol's bellowed accusations, Leo's scream, her unrepentant smirk, and my trained response to neutralize the threat. My voice stayed steady, my special forces background lending credibility. The jury leaned forward, some taking notes. Carol's defense was a house of cards. Her lawyer painted her as a dedicated volunteer, enforcing community standards, claiming Leo's castle was a hazard, and my reaction excessive. He called me a trained killer, trying to spin my military past into menace. But the prosecution dismantled it. They replayed Carol's deposition, her contradictions glaring. She'd claimed Leo provoked her, then admitted he'd barely spoken. Her temper flared on tape, undermining her frail victim act. A character witness, an old colleague, faltered under cross-examination, admitting Carol's history of petty vendettas. The binder's weight and Leo's injuries were undeniable. The defense's attempt to shift blame to me, suggesting I'd escalated unnecessarily, crumbled against the security footage showing Carol's aggressive lunge post-assault. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. When they filed back in, their faces were stone. Guilty, the foreman read. On the charge of felony assault. Carol's gasp was audible, her lawyer's hand on her arm futile. The courtroom buzzed, a reporter scribbling furiously. I exhaled, the weight of months lifting slightly. Leo wasn't there. Too young, too fragile, but I'd carry the victory to him. Sentencing came a week later. The judge, a stern woman with steel gray hair, didn't mince words. Ms. Jenkins, she said, your abuse of power and violence against a child are reprehensible. You've shown no remorse, only entitlement. Carol's eyes welled, but the judge was unmoved. The sentence was layered. 3 years probation with a 6-month jail stint. Hefty restitution for Leo's medical bills, nearing $50,000, plus therapy costs and pain and suffering. Mandatory anger management and child endangerment counseling were non-negotiable. A permanent restraining order barred her from contacting Leo or me. Finally, 200 hours of community service at a children's hospital. A poetic twist that drew nods from the gallery. Carol's face crumpled. Her HOA queen persona shattered. The civil suit was almost an afterthought. Carol's conviction gutted her defense. Her lawyer, sensing a losing battle, pushed for a settlement. My attorney and I met them in a sleek conference room. The settlement agreement typed and waiting. Carol, via video call from her attorney's office, looked defeated. Her brace a constant reminder of her fall. She agreed to a $150,000 payout, covering Leo's ongoing care and our legal fees. It would drain her savings, especially with her criminal fines. I signed the document, its pages crisp, and felt a quiet satisfaction. Not vengeance, justice. The neighborhood reeled. Posts on X exploded. Hashtags like #JusticeForLeo trending locally. A news segment aired, showing the clubhouse's now empty coffee table, juxtaposed with Leo's smiling photo. His cast doodled with stars. Residents flooded the HOA with demands for reform. And the board, battered by lawsuits and bad press, began to comply. A settlement agreement was leaked, likely by a disgruntled board member, and shared online, each clause a public shaming of Carol. Her name became synonymous with Karen. A cautionary tale whispered at community gatherings. I visited Leo the next day, bringing his favorite cookies. His hand was still in a brace, but he grinned, sketching a new Lego castle design. "Can we build it soon?" he asked. I nodded, promising a weekend project. His resilience was a bomb, though his occasional wince reminded me of the road ahead. My dossier on Carol, still open on my laptop, felt redundant now. The courtroom had done its work. The binder logged in evidence would never again be a weapon. The DA's decision, the medical displays, the deposition transcripts, all had served their purpose. Carol's world was collapsing, but mine was steadying. The trial had exposed her lies. My training had fortified our case, and the jury had seen through her tears. Leo's laughter, faint but growing, was the real victory. The courthouse, once a battleground, faded into memory as I planned our next Lego build. Carol had swung first. We'd finished the fight. Carol Jenkins tried to crush a child's spirit and a family's peace. Instead, she inadvertently built a stronger community and proved that even a Lego castle can be a fortress of justice. The clubhouse felt different now, reborn. Sunlight streamed through freshly cleaned windows, illuminating a corner transformed into a vibrant children's play area. Foam mats cushioned the floor, and low tables held bins of toys and art supplies. Leo, his hands still in a light brace but healing, knelt at one table, surrounded by friends. His new Lego castle was a marvel, towers soaring higher than his last, studded with translucent gems and guarded by tiny knights. The bin of Legos beside him overflowed, a gift from neighbors who'd rallied after the trial. A plaque on the wall read, "Donated in honor of Leo M. and the spirit of creativity." I watched from a nearby chair, a newspaper folded in my lap, feeling a quiet pride. The HOA, under new leadership, had prioritized community over control, and this space was proof. Leo's laughter rang out as he snapped a turret into place. Physical therapy had worked wonders, though he still stretched his fingers gingerly between builds. His nightmares had faded, replaced by sketches of castles and spaceships. The settlement money ensured his medical bills were covered, with enough left for a college fund. His resilience was a beacon, guiding the neighborhood toward healing. Kids now flocked to the clubhouse, their chatter drowning out memories of Carol's bellowing. The coffee table where it all happened was gone, replaced by a colorful rug. The cookie plate, once a sad relic, was now a tray of cupcakes brought by a parent, shared among the kids. Carol's world, meanwhile, was a shadow. Her community service at a children's hospital was ongoing, each hour a reminder of her crime. Scrubs replaced her power blouses. Her HOA throne long vacated. Her finances, gutted by restitution and legal fees, forced her to sell her house. At a loss, thanks to the neighborhood's tainted reputation, the sale closed quietly, her belongings packed into a U-Haul as neighbors watched from their porches. She moved to a small apartment across town, her name a whispered warning. The Architectural Review Committee's chair remained empty, a symbolic void. Posts on X tracked her downfall, some with biting humor. HOA Karen now sweeps hospital floors. Karma's got a mop. Her dossier, still on my laptop, was closed, its purpose served. I found peace in the small moments. Watching Leo build, I saw a kid reclaiming his joy. My role in the HOA was minimal, occasional safety consults, always low-key. My past stayed private, but the neighborhood knew I was a shield for its kids. The clubhouse bustled with life. Book clubs, yoga classes, and now this play area. A testament to change. The board, humbled by lawsuits and public shame, had rewritten bylaws to curb overreach. Residents, once cowed by Carol's reign, now spoke up, their voices shaping a warmer community. One afternoon, as Leo added a drawbridge to his castle, I caught myself smiling. Carol had always preached about maintaining standards. She'd set a new one for how swiftly a tyrant could fall. A 5-pound binder in the wrong hands was deadlier than any Lego stack, and some knees couldn't withstand justice's force. I leaned over to Leo, pointing at his creation. "Now that's an approved structure," I said. He grinned, handing me a knight to place on the ramparts. The fight had been brutal. Depositions, trials, sleepless nights. But it forged something stronger. The DA's decision, the settlement agreement, Leo's x-rays. All were archived. Their weight lifted. The binder, locked in evidence, would never harm again. The neighborhood, once fractured, was knitting itself whole. A local news segment revisited the story, showing Leo's new castle and interviewing residents about the post-Karen era. Property values stabilized. The HOA's insurance renewed under stricter terms. The play area's plaque became a quiet landmark. Its words a promise kept. Carol's legacy was a cautionary tale, shared in HOA horror stories across the county. Her restraining order kept her far from us, her influence erased. Leo, now planning a spaceship build, was the real architect here. His castle stood as a fortress, not just of plastic bricks, but of a community that refused to let a bully win. If you believe that bullies should always get their comeuppance, especially when they harm children, smash that like button. Share the story of instant karma and HOA takedown. Subscribe for more tales of entitled Karens facing the consequences. And be sure to ring that bell. What's the most outrageous abuse of HOA power you've ever seen or heard of? Let it all out in the comments below. The clubhouse hummed with life as I folded my newspaper. Leo's castle gleamed under the lights, a symbol of what we'd rebuilt. Carol had swung first, aiming to crush a child's spirit. We'd answered with evidence, resolve, and a jury's verdict. Now, with every brick Leo placed, we were building something she'd never understand. A community that protected its own.